The Detroit Pistons had the best draft out of any team in the NBA, and they walk out of Thursday looking like a playoff contender in the East real soon. To sum up the Pistons draft activity, here's who they got. Jaden Ivey at number 5, Jalen Duren at number 13, and Italian wing Gabriele Procida at 36. So let's go in order, and let's start with Ivey, who I mentioned in my mock draft video was the perfect fit next to Cade Cunningham. Now, I really like Jaden Ivey. He was 4th on my big board, and him going to the Sacramento Kings always seemed a bit unlikely to me. He was not a great fit next to Domantas Sabonis or especially De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell. I think there's a solid chance Ivey turns out better than both of those guards. I'm less convinced on Fox, but what I do know for sure is that I think he has all the makings to be a great NBA guard. The emphasis here is on the word guard, because I'm not sure Ivey is a point guard per se, and I really think that he's much better next to a big, playmaking wing, someone in the mold of Cade Cunningham. Ivey is at his best when he's getting downhill, be it in transition where he is a complete terror, or in the half court. The Purdue product loves to get towards the rim coming out of handoffs or pin downs. He doesn't always have to be the primary ball handler or the guy bringing the ball up. Again, that sort of benefits that combination with Cade Cunningham. Offensively, my questions with Ivey mostly reside with the three-pointer. He can get reckless in transition, and he does have to start playing at more than one speed, but I think that will come in time, and I love the effect that NBA spacing should have on his game. From 3 though, Ivey shoots more of a set two-part shot. He has a slow release and windup, and also brings the ball pretty low on his jumper. He has what I like to call a frontward-downward release. However, I think that will just about translate alright enough early on in spot-up situations. Ivey was already a much better shooter in these types of threes in college at Purdue, and I think that Cade and the rest of Detroit's offensive potential should generate enough pressure for Ivey to ideally get easy looks from 3. As I've been saying, I cannot emphasize enough. I think Detroit got their dream target here in Jaden Ivey at number 5. The fit next to Cade Cunningham is ideal, and as for Ivey himself, well, he could very well be the best guard in the draft. Detroit should feel absolutely amazing about snatching him up where they did. In a few years, we could be talking about this as a massive steal, but in fact, I already feel fairly comfortable projecting it as such. Up next, we have Jalen Duren. For the last week or so, we've heard about Pistons general manager Troy Weaver being quote-unquote one of Duren's biggest fans in the league. At one point, I predicted that the Memphis center could be the early surprise of the draft, should the Pistons pick him at 5. But as it turns out, they were able to wait until 13 and grab Duren for what I think is a super high value pick. The Pistons traded to get him in a complicated deal that had us wondering what exactly was going on last night. But either way, Weaver got his man at minimal cost. The Pistons are taking on Kemba Walker, but it seems like both sides are working towards a buyout. So this was a really smart move, taking advantage of the New York Knicks' need to dump cap space. Looking forward, Detroit's young core is now mouth-watering. Duren is basically the perfect big to put next to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. First, he plays a really simple role on offense. Duren is a low-volume center who can focus on rim running, setting hard screens, crashing the boards, and playing above the rim. Cunningham did not play like this with an above-the-rim big at Oklahoma State in the NCAA or with Detroit last year in the NBA, so I'm excited to see him flesh out his passing even more, with someone who's as impactful as the basket as the former Memphis center. On defense, Ivey still needs to lock in more consistently, and I think it will still be a couple years or so before Cade is a true positive here with his size and fluidity. Now, Duren remains green. He's the youngest player in the draft, but I love the flashes. The Memphis big is an athletic marvel with awesome pop off the floor. He averaged more than 2 blocks per game for the Tigers in a team that really put a lot of stress on their big. On top of that, Duren has shown some versatility, switching onto smaller guards and wings. Finally, going back to his offensive repertoire pretty quickly, it also includes glimpses of some passing and shooting. I think both of these are still a ways away, not to mention that these will never be Duren's calling cards in the league. But I'm intrigued, and I think he has untapped offensive potential. Motor City rounded out its excellent night by somewhat taking a gamble on Italian wing Gabriele Procida. Detroit picked him coming out of Bologna in the Italian league at 36, and again, I love the potential return on this selection. The rumors are that Detroit will stash the Italian wing, but I would love to see Procida in the summer league to see what he can do against guys on NBA radars. The 20-year-old Italian is a plus athlete at 6'8" and already has a really strong frame that is filling out well despite coming in at slightly under 200 pounds. Procida defies the stereotype of the unathletic Italian NBA wing like Marco Bellinelli or current Danilo Gallinari. Rather, he brings great size at the 2 or the 3 and, as I said, powerful athleticism. Time and time again, we saw how Procida could play above the rim to good effect. This came either in transition, where the 20-year-old threw down some big dunks, or also on offensive rebounds. The second-round pick's rebounding numbers do not pop off the page, but I think there's some real upside there with the wing who played for Bologna. Procida is great at leveraging his size at 6'8", and his athleticism most of all. He reminds me a bit of Michael Porter Jr. in the way that he makes you feel his size and his explosiveness. He can crash the boards, get tip dunks, or cut and finish. And of course, potentially the most encouraging thing here is that Procida shot 38% from 3 in the Italian league. With Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey on the team, I wouldn't really expect Procida to get a lot of opportunities to create his own shot or really get into his own pull-up. What he will really have to focus on is shooting the 3 and attacking closeouts, and thankfully he has done really well shooting the first. It wasn't on the highest volume, but Procida shot 38% from 3 in the Italian league. I buy the stroke, it's fluid and compact. He still has some work to do on making the catch and shoot more consistent because he can get sped up by size and closeouts can still affect him. But I like the overall potential. If Procida can knock down his wide open threes that should be generated by the rim pressure that not only Cade Cunningham applies with his overall scoring threat, Jaden Ivey with his drives downhill, and how Jalen Duren can play above the rim, then I think that Procida really should get some easy opportunities from 3. If the Pistons don't bring him over this year, it will be intriguing to see how the Italian wing develops. Procida could prove to be a steal down the line next to Saddiq Bey, or even someone like Isaiah Livers, who I also really liked when Detroit picked him last year. If we're looking at a Pistons team that's running Cade, Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey at the guard, has Isaiah Livers, Saddiq Bey, and now, Procida if he ever comes over on the wing. We should see what happens with Hamidou Diallo, but I really do like the combinations there. I think that Detroit still has some questions to answer in the front court, but Kelly Olynyk should prove to be a nice fit, at least in the short term, next to Jalen Duren, and also depending on Isaiah Stewart and Marvin Bagley's futures. They both had encouraging seasons, but after Duren came in, I really think that these are the main core pieces for Detroit. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren. That's one hell of a trio to build around, and I can't wait to see what the Pistons look like next season.